Hi everybody, and welcome back from your week off. Dr. Klein here once again to start off week 10. And in this week we're going to focus on criminal trials and the aftermath of those occurrences. So this week, sorry, but you have a little bit more to read for me than you normally do. There's chapter 10 of the CRIJ textbook, the 2014 Richards et al. Piece, and the Hayes and Levitt piece from 2013. And interesting fun fact, when we're talking about the Hayes and Levitt piece, I actually went to graduate school with Becky Hayes, and I think now, if I remember right, she's up in central Michigan. And Laura Levitt is one of the best psych law researchers and scholars that we currently have going. And she was one of, and it might be my own biases, but okay, she was one of my professors when I was doing my undergraduate and my graduate work at the University of Florida. And she was on my comprehensive exam, my master's thesis, and my doctoral dissertation committees. So I've spent a lot of time over the years working with Laura, and I can honestly tell you that she is one of my favorite academics out there who focuses on psych law literature and that type of research. So I just feel like anytime I can bring Laura into the classroom a little bit, I'm happy to do so. And also this week, in addition to those readings, you have, again, two complementary SCOTUS cases with the Atkins and Hall, with the Atkins case and the Hall case. I got myself a little confused there, sorry. Both of which are going to focus on the use of the death penalty. So starting with the CRIJ text, it is basically discussing the different types of constitutional rights and protections that a defendant has in a criminal court context. And the authors really do a good job of reviewing the procedural issues that are at stake during a criminal trial, including jury selection and jury decision making, which is something that Becky and Laura talk about in their piece. And for a lot of us, we know that jury selection is sort of this necessary evil, and that sometimes we have to show up for the jury pool every now and then. We get our summons in the mail and we have to go show up to the courthouse. And I've gone a couple times myself over the years, but I haven't made it past the initial stages. And realistically, I'm probably never going to get chosen for jury duty, no matter how much I actually want to be on a jury. I'm probably one of those weird ones who only wants to be there to observe the cases, but I really like court, so that's me. But I probably will never be chosen just because of what I do for a living and how much I know about the CJ system, and it would not make me a very impartial juror. So anyway, we know that for the most part, a lot of us are going to be called for jury duty, and we have to go sit in the room and all that. And sometimes we make it past those initial stages, and we actually get called to serve on a jury. And the sad thing is that I don't know how to say it, like, our media tends to saturate us so much with crime shows and with legal dramas that many people aren't, unfortunately, able to separate fiction from reality. And this is one of the things, primarily, it's the main focus of the Hayes and Levitt piece. And in that piece, they call it the CSI effect. And I just think that is one of the coolest terms that you can come up with. Because, we watch these shows, and different networks know we watch these shows. And that's why you have 27 different CSIs and 27 different Law and Orders and all these things, because we watch these shows and we sit there and we see that a fictional crime team is sort of able to solve a murder in an hour. And that is just so unrealistic, and it just sort of boggles your mind that you can sit there and say, in an hour, you have done all of this stuff, right? And I obviously know the show doesn't take place in real time, but we just have these expectations that it happens so fast that we want our real life detectives to behave the exact same way and do the same exact things. And if the detectives on TV have found fingerprints, then why can't you find fingerprints? The show made it look just so terribly easy, and I just don't understand why you can't do the same thing. And in real life, oftentimes you can't lift fingerprints off of something, and you don't get a full print, and it's, people don't leave DNA behind all the time, so it doesn't necessarily lead you right to the suspect every time. And real life technology is not as advanced and is not as readily accessible as it is on your CSI of the week, right? What happens if there's no match in the system, right? Your suspect is brand new and there's no DNA in the system. You can't make a positive ID or a positive match with that suspect, right? So what happens then? Or what happens if there is DNA left at the scene, but it takes years to process the DNA because the crime labs are so backed up, it's just sitting on a shelf forever. It's basically useless DNA, right? So because we are just so hooked on these TV shows, and we are just hooked, right? We sort of convince ourselves that we know what's going on, and then because we are so biased by these TV shows, that then influences our decision making as jurors, and it impacts our skills in the courtroom, right? We put more stock in evidence that we shouldn't necessarily put any stock in at all, and we evaluate other pieces of evidence that are more important as being less significant because of what this show is doing to us, right? And it's just, if you really think about it, it's just an awesome effect that is happening. It's not real great for real life applications and uses in the courtroom, but in a scientific sense, this is just an absolutely awesome phenomenon that we're seeing. But again, probably not that spectacular if you're the defendant and you're one of the jurors that is trying to figure out whether this person is guilty or should be acquitted, right? But it's true, we are very easily influenced. It doesn't take a lot to sway us one way or the other. And that's why on important, really high-profile cases, you sort of want the jury to be exposed to the least amount of outside influence possible. You don't want them listening to any outside media sources or phone calls from family members or whatever it is. So what do? You have to sequester your jury. Right? And that's costly and it's time consuming, but it's sometimes a necessary evil for the courts. Really, even the court can influence jurors, right? If I'm sitting in the courtroom and let's say the DA or the defense attorney has a piece of evidence that they're trying to admit, and the judge says, no, I'm not going to admit that, I'm not going to allow that to be entered into evidence. Jurors, please disregard this piece of evidence. Do we really disregard it? If we've already seen it and we've already been told that this is something that I want you to consider, and then all of a sudden I don't want you to consider it anymore, do our brains work like that? Can we just stop processing that piece of information? Well, the answer is no, right? We're going to remember these things, and just because you told me not to think about it, what do you think I'm going to be thinking about instead, right? Jury instructions are a huge, big thing. Right? The court has to be very clear in informing jury members about what it is that they want them to do, right? What should be considered, what are the qualifications for a specific charge, right? If you're going to charge someone with first-degree murder, then the crime has to meet X, Y, Z elements, right? I have to be able to take those into account. And you also have to inform me about anything else you want me to know about before I head into that deliberation room. Because once I'm in there, and I can only rely on my other jurors, right? Sometimes the instructions are confusing. Sometimes jurors need further information or further clarification from the judge on what it is that they're supposed to be doing. Sometimes they need clarification on a piece of evidence. Where did this come from? Am I supposed to be considering this or not? Right? And even then, all things considered, they might not be able to make a unanimous decision. Sometimes you get hung juries, right? And juries are very tricky things, right? And why are they tricky? Because people are involved, and people complicate absolutely everything. We need to absolutely protect the constitutional rights of the defendant, but boy, are working with a group of people difficult. Right? It's hard to, as the defense attorney or as the prosecution, it is hard to choose the correct jurors that are going to fall in line with what you want them to do. Sometimes I'm going to throw out one of your jurors, and sometimes you're going to throw out one of mine. And it's just difficult to choose people that you hope are going to rule and decide in your favor. Other times it's so easy it's not even funny. You get the perfect jury the first go around, and here you are. Right? But you don't necessarily know until you get in that room and you see who's available in the jury pool, and even after you pick the potential jury, you know, you might be sitting there saying, boy, did I make a mistake with juror number 2. I wish I had pulled this other guy or this other lady, right? But either way, even with all of these positives and negatives about the jury, it's a necessary evil, and we got to keep it going if we're going to protect the constitutional rights of our defendants. So, With all that being said and done, I'm actually going to leave you here and let you all get working on your discussion boards and your weekly writing assignments, and have time for you guys to be able to look over the different online presentations that your classmates have put together for you all this week, specifically on the weekly topic and on the Atkins case and then on the Hall case. So as always, I am here for you guys. If you have any questions, concerns, want to talk, want to hash things out, whatever it may be, I am here and ready for you all. And if not, then I'm going to see you all next week for week 11 when we make our way into the civil court system, civil trials. So I will see you then. Have a good week, guys. Bye.